Elite isn't just stats. Elite is October's performance. Elite is when the stadium is shaking and you deliver. Now, I ain't gonna lie. Being a Mets fan, whenever Harper steps up to the plate, I get nervous. All right, Mets fans and baseball fans in general, we need to talk about Bryce Harper because he went on Bussin With The Boys and gave one of the most revealing, honest, legacy-defining interviews of his career. And as a Mets fan, this one hits different. We're talking about being called the chosen one in high school, dropping out after sophomore year to fast track to MLB, his time with the Washington Nationals, leaving DC for Philadelphia, the Nationals winning the World Series the very next year, whether they could have afforded that championship pitcher they needed if they kept Harper, almost signing with the San Francisco Giants, switching positions after Tommy John surgery, being told he's not elite anymore, and what drives him now. This isn't just baseball. This is legacy. Let's get into it. Bryce Harper wasn't just a good prospect. He was called the chosen one. In high school at 16 years old, Sports Illustrated literally put him on the cover and compared him to LeBron James. Think about that. Baseball doesn't do that. Baseball doesn't hype teenagers like that. But Harper was different. He had power. He had swagger. He had generational talent. And instead of staying in high school the traditional route, he made a move nobody else was making. He dropped out after his sophomore year, got his GED, went to junior college. Why? To be draft eligible faster. Let that sink in. At 16, 17 years old, this guy said, I'm ready for the league. That confidence can look cocky, but it can also look like destiny. And that move changed everything. Harper gets drafted by the Washington Nationals. Then instantly, the expectations are insane. He wins Rookie of the Year, wins the MVP, becomes the face of the franchise. But here's the part that stood out in the podcast. He talked about how much he loved DC. He loves the teammates, the culture, the early rebuild days, trying to make that team relevant. He wasn't some villain who hated Washington. He built that franchise into a contender. But baseball is a business, and eventually free agency comes, and this is where it gets interesting. When Harper hit free agency, it wasn't just about money. It was about vision. He talked about wanting long-term security, a fan base that matched his fire, an organization committed to winning every year. The Phillies stepped up with a 13-year, $330 million deal. But here's the twist. He almost chose the San Francisco Giants. He admitted it. He liked the organization, liked the culture, liked the West Coast vibe, but it was the last year of the manager's contract, and Harper wanted stability. He didn't want to sign long-term somewhere that might reset leadership in year one. So he chose Philadelphia. He chose chaos. He chose passion. He chose pressure. And as a Mets fan watching this, you can't ignore that competitive fire. Now here's the elephant in the room. Harper leaves in 2018. The Nationals win the World Series in 2019 without him. And on the podcast, he acknowledged that. But here's where it gets really interesting. The Nationals signed a major pitcher that year, strengthening their rotation in the way they desperately needed. And Harper himself talked about how pitching wins in October. So here's the question I'm asking as a baseball fan. If the Nationals had re-signed Harper to a $300+ million deal, could they have afforded the pitching that they needed? And if they couldn't, would they have won a World Series? Because that championship run was built on elite pitching depth, not just offense. That's not disrespect to Harper. That's roster construction and reality. Sometimes letting a superstar walk gives you flexibility to build balance. And that's a tough pill to swallow, but it's honest baseball. Then he talks about something that doesn't get enough respect, Tommy John surgery. Not as a pitcher, as an outfielder. And instead of letting it derail him, he changed positions, moved to first base. That's not ego. That's adaptation. That's saying, I'm going to do whatever helps this team win. A former MVP, a former outfielder, now I'm grinding at first base. That's evolution. And that matters when you're talking about legacy. Then there's the comment that lit a fire. Phillies president saying Harper isn't elite anymore. Imagine telling a former MVP that. Imagine saying that publicly. Harper didn't explode. He didn't rant. But you could tell. It fuels him. He still sees himself as one of the best in the game. And when you look at his postseason numbers, it's hard to argue that. Elite isn't just stats. Elite is October's performance. Elite is when the stadium is shaking and you deliver. Now, I ain't gonna lie. Being a Mets fan, whenever Harper steps up to the plate, I get nervous. Now, let me say this as a Mets fan as well. I don't really like Bryce Harper, but I respect him. He plays with edge. He embraces villain energy. He doesn't hide from pressure. And listening to this interview, you understand him more. He's not just flash. He's calculated, he's competitive, he's obsessed with winning. And whether you like him or not, baseball is better when Bryce Harper matters. So here's the final question. Did the Nationals win because Harper left, or would they have won anyway? Was leaving DC the right move? Did Philly unlock his legacy? Is he still elite? Is he a Hall of Famer? Drop it below. And if you love real baseball talk, subscribe, because we're not just reacting, we're breaking down legacy. Let's talk baseball.